The financial secretary not optimistic about the city's GDP figures this year. German Chancellor defends his recent visit to China. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Financial Secretary Paul Chan is not optimistic about Hong Kong's GDP figures for the current year, but he believes if the city can keep the epidemic under control and further open up on the path to normalcy, the economic recovery will gradually pick up momentum. And he says the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit will again be held next year. Christy Khan reports.
The three-day Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit wrapped up on Thursday. In his latest blog post, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said more than 200 financiers from around 120 international financial firms came to Hong Kong to attend the event. One-third of the participants are presidents or chief executives of the financial firms. Chan noted that some of them told him they had experienced the city's vibrancy and extensive opportunities during the three-day event, and this first-hand experience was different from what they had heard or seen in foreign media reports. Furthermore, Chan said the summit participants revealed that they had learned more about Hong Kong's unique strengths as an international financial center and its latest market developments. He also said the summit had achieved the goal of showing to the world that Hong Kong is opening up and returning to normalcy. He added that the city will host another Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit next year. Speaking about the local economy, Chan noted that Hong Kong's GDP shrank by 4.5% year-on-year in the third quarter of the year. But he said if the city's pandemic situation is under control and its activities with the rest of the world are restored, the economy recovery will gradually pick up momentum. Additionally, he reiterated that the top priority for authorities at the moment is to attract more firms and talent to the city to boost investment and economic development. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Vice Chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Leung Chun-ying, said Hong Kongers should not wait for quarantine-free travel to the mainland. The city's former chief executive said people in Hong Kong, including those holding public posts, should take the initiative to look for opportunities on the mainland. Leung added people shouldn't be afraid of the 7-day quarantine and 3-day observation arrangement. He also slammed Western media for suggesting China will go backwards in the wake of the National Congress of the Communist Party of China. Leung said China is clearly opening up further, including hosting the 2022 China International Import Expo, which began on Saturday. Hong Kong's daily COVID infection tally fell below the 5,000 mark today. Among the 4,988 newly reported cases, 395 were imported. 8 residential care homes logged 14 new coronavirus cases involving 14 residents and 2 carers. More than 80 residents who were listed as close contacts had to undergo quarantine. 13 more patients have died, bringing the death toll to 10,257 in the city's 5th wave of infections. Starting Tuesday, only throat swab samples will be collected during free nucleic acid tests conducted at community testing centres. That will replace the current practice of collecting nasal and throat swab samples. Authorities say switching to throat swabs to collect upper respiratory tract specimens for nucleic acid tests can achieve high sensitivity. Residents who wish to perform a free test must make prior bookings or display the testing registration QR code on their Leave Home Safe app. Meanwhile, the self-pay testing arrangement at community testing centres will remain unchanged and will continue to use the combined nasal and throat swabs. In Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz called on Russia to clearly declare it will not use nuclear weapons during the war in Ukraine. This as Scholz answered his critics who opposed his recent visit to China with top German business leaders. He was accused of continuing a strategy of excessively exposing Germany's economy to China instead of diversifying. Tracy Furness has more.
Scholz was speaking at an event of his Social Democratic Party in Berlin Saturday when he defended his visit to Beijing. He said his and President Xi Jinping's joint statement opposing the use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine had been reason enough for the visit. Russia is and remains a great military power, and Russia has nuclear weapons. But that is precisely why it's very important that we say it is not allowed. It is unacceptable to use nuclear weapons in this conflict. We call on Russia to clearly state that it will not do this. That would be a limit that must not be crossed, Scholz said. His comments came a day after his visit to the world's second-largest economy, alongside the CEOs of major German corporates, including Siemens, BMW, Volkswagen and Deutsche Bank. It was the first visit to China by a G7 leader since the COVID-19 pandemic. President Xi Jinping agreed that both leaders jointly oppose the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons over Ukraine. But the Chinese leader refrained from criticizing Russia or calling on Moscow to withdraw troops. Scholz had been criticized for seemingly continuing a strategy that exposes Germany's economy excessively to China. China is Germany's most important trading partner. He was called to diversify, as there would be possible repercussions should the relationship sour. Scholz said that the country will continue economic exchange with China, but added, "We're going to position ourselves to be able to deal with a situation at any time where there are difficulties, whether it's 10 years from now or 30 years. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The United States may be secretly trying to push Ukraine into opening peace talks with Russia, according to a Washington Post report citing unnamed U.S. sources. Kyiv, though, is fuming after Iran admitted it had supplied a limited number of drones to Russia, which they say Moscow is using to attack Ukrainian cities. Nazvi Karim reports.
This peace rally in Italy is the latest of dozens to have taken place across Europe and elsewhere since Russia's invasion of Ukraine almost 9 months ago. None have worked so far, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky refusing to negotiate with Russian leader Vladimir Putin unless certain conditions are met. And just 2 days ago, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in Kyiv that the United States would not flinch in its support for Ukraine. However, according to a Washington Post report, war fatigue may be setting in, if not for Ukraine and Russia, but for countries in Europe, South America and Africa, where the conflict has had a debilitating effect on economies. The Post, citing unnamed sources, says the U.S. is privately encouraging Ukraine to send overtures to Moscow that it may be willing to negotiate. Ukraine fatigue is a real thing for some of our partners, it quoted an unnamed U.S. official as saying. But the mood in Kyiv is far from forgiving after revelations from Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian that Tehran had in fact supplied Russia with a small number of drones before the war even started. With Iran and Moscow previously denying such deals, an angry Zelensky called them liars as defenses in Kyiv and other cities shoot down at least 10 Iranian drones a day in attacks that is causing widespread blackouts. And in another insight, a group monitoring North Korean developments says a train crossed from North Korea into Russia on Friday, 2 days after the U.S. suggested Pyongyang was covertly supplying Russia with artillery shells for use against Ukraine. The 38 North project cites these satellite images as proof. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces closing in on Kherson city in the south may find the city abandoned, as Putin himself endorses an evacuation in a major setback for his troops on the ground. Putin's focus seems to be on Ukraine's power and water infrastructure in major cities. Kyiv and other cities were plunged into darkness for hours as Russia continues its attacks. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Still to come on tonight's news. France's far-right National Rally Party elects a new leader. Open day at the Fire and Ambulance Services Academy. And the last day of this year's Hong Kong Rugby Sevens. Welcome back to TVB News. France's Rassemblement National or National Rally Party has elected Jordan Bardella as president to succeed Marine Le Pen in the post. The 27-year-old member of the European Parliament won an internal party vote with 85% support. Matthew Bray reports.
The National Rally Party is seeking to capitalise on its recent breakthrough in France's legislative election, and to that end it has gone with a changing of the guard, placing Jordan Bardella to lead the party. Marine Le Pen is not exactly stepping down, as she is expected to run for the presidency again in 2027. She said she is stepping aside to focus on leading the party's 89 lawmakers in the National Assembly.
I'm
not leaving to go on holiday, said Le Pen. There will be no rest for me until we have straightened out the country for the future. Bardella, ironically, has Italian roots and spoke of his pride at becoming French, although made it clear that France should not become the world's hotel, calling for drastic limits on immigration. Bardella, who garnered 85% of the party members' votes, has said he will continue Le Pen's drive to attract voters beyond the party's traditional base and turn it into a government-ready organisation. Le Pen had already diluted some of the party's anti-immigrant Eurosceptic policies ahead of her unsuccessful bid for the presidency in this year's election won by Emmanuel Macron. Bardella is the first person to lead the party who is not a member of the Le Pen family. The former National Front was founded in 1972 by Marine's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. She expelled him in 2015 in a bid to distance the party from its more radical fringes. A boxing enthusiast raised in a social housing block, Bardella, at 27, has risen quickly and is part of the generation that engaged themselves behind Le Pen in the 2010s. Of course, the critics are out there, such as this Paris elected official.
They are still the same. The ideas are still the same. What they want to achieve is still the same goal, and we need to be able to fight back, to answer back, and to say that this way of thinking politics and our way of life is very, very different from what we stand for.
Bardella takes over after the French Parliament on Friday cut the pay of a National Rally MP who shouted racist remarks during a debate. The new leader defended the lawmaker, saying immigration and national identity would remain key planks of the party's programme. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
In Geneva, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk issued an open letter to the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, Saturday. The letter urges Musk to ensure human rights are central to the management of Twitter. Twitter laid off half its workforce on Friday. Tweets by staff of the social media company said the team responsible for human rights was among those affected. Twitter is part of a global revolution that has transformed how we communicate, Turk wrote. But I write with concern and apprehension about our digital public square and Twitter's role in it. This as Twitter is now charging $8 for the sought-after blue check verification, Musk's first major revision of the social media platform. The Zhuhai Air Show starts on Tuesday. The Chinese military said 7 warplanes, including J-20s, will take part. Military aircraft conducted adaptive training for adverse weather and other factors. Local media said 5th-generation fighter jets rarely appeared in front of the public on the ground in the past. But this time, after completing one sortie, a J-20 landed only 150 meters away from the public on the Zhuhai Air Show apron. More arms were on display, including PL-10, air-to-air missiles, and a Wenglong 3 unmanned aerial vehicle. National education composed a large part of the latest policy address. Secretary for Education Christine Choi said she hopes to further cultivate talent in the city through education reform.
In his policy address, Chief Executive John Lee talked about how to promote national education. Speaking to TVB News, Education Chief Christine Choi said, carrying out national education aims to cultivate intelligent and patriotic talent in Hong Kong, and it also further strengthens the one country, two systems principle. Choi said director-level staff members should be in charge of national education in schools because junior staff might not have enough knowledge to undertake it. She added patriotism is a basic requirement for directors in a school so that they can lead other colleagues. Choi said schools should have a follow-up system if there is any misconduct. She added the current accountability mechanism is just a guideline to let teachers know how they should behave and how they can work better. As for the study tour that newly joined teachers in publicly funded schools are required to attend, Choi noted it's not for travel purposes. She said the tours include seminars on China's latest developments and field trips to enterprises and historical sites. Choi noted even though the study tour requirement is not included in a teacher's contract, schools should remind teachers who have not joined the tour yet. Earlier, a dozen students were suspended for 3 days at a secondary school in Chunwan after allegedly disrespecting a flag-raising ceremony. Choi stressed the new measures were not meant to punish misbehaving students, but to guide them to do better. She added an investigation is ongoing and made no comment on the case.
It was open day at the Fire and Ambulance Services Academy in Changkwon-o today, and more than 13,000 people visited the academy. Firefighters put their skills on display, such as setting up a ladder to rescue people, as well as operations at high-angle locations. That amazed kids who came all the way to the facility. Some even dressed up as firefighters, saying they hope to become one someday. The event was so popular that for hours there was a long line of cars carrying visitors to the academy, stretching 1 kilometer down the road. Meanwhile, it was another spectacle at the Fireboat Alexander Grantham Exhibition Gallery in Quarry Bay today. That's in celebration of its 15th year of opening. Members of the public were able to get a first-hand look of the facilities inside the fireboat, including its kitchen and wheelhouse. The 3-day Hong Kong Rugby Sevens came to an end this evening. Some spectators who previously held Amber Code status were allowed to enter the Hong Kong Stadium today after they received a blue code this morning. And they were invited by the organisers to enjoy the action from the VIP section. Christy Khan reports.
After a 3-year hiatus, the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens returned to the city at last. And today was the last day of the tournament. The huge crowd of rugby fans ensured a lively atmosphere as they cheered for their favorite teams at the stadium. And the South African tourist who was barred from entering the stadium on the first day of tournament because of his Amber Code was spotted at one of the VIP seats during the day. He was one of those who received an invitation from organizers to enter the VIP section after Friday's incident. It's understood he will be refunded for missing the first 2 days.
It was bad to wait for the blue code, but we managed, we survived. And I'm here to watch the rugby. Yeah, well, I'm very satisfied. We are very happy and we're just enjoying everything.
Because of the anti-COVID measures, the venue's maximum capacity was reduced this time compared to the past years. Empty seats could be seen inside the stadium. But it didn't affect the atmosphere in the venue. The cheering never stopped. Meanwhile, owners of the stadium's food store said they were happy to see the crowds return, adding that business was thriving since day one of the event.
And looking forward to having rugby sevens like this. We were closed for 3 years, but this time is the first time we are actually open for food. I hope they don't close again the Hong Kong Stadium.
He added that he hoped the Hong Kong government will implement the 0+0 scheme soon to bring more tourists back to the city. Christy Khan, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.